When I was killed by being hit by a car hired by Delilah, my husband was getting the marriage certificate with her at the Civil Affairs Bureau. In my second life, when I was forced by Delilah to commit suicide by jumping off a building, my husband was accompanying her for the prenatal examination in the hospital. I had lived through 2 lives, and each time I was trampled under Delilah's feet and turned into mud.in this life, I decided to slack off. After letting go, my husband knelt down and told me that the person he loved was me. When I opened my eyes again, I went back to the day when Delilah came to my house during our honeymoon. I stared blankly at the fact that my things had been moved from the master bedroom to the guest room. "Phoenix, come here quickly. I have a surprise for you." My husband directly pulled me in front of Delilah in the master bedroom. "This is Delilah, the pride of our family that I mentioned to you before. Didn't you say you wanted to meet her before? You can see her every day from now on." Delilah was the daughter adopted by my husband's aunt and was studying for a postgraduate degree in my city. She said that she couldn't get along with her dormitory mates and wanted to move to my house. My husband and my in-laws directly decided to let Delilah live in my wedding room, and I, who was sent to the guest room, was only informed when I entered. I had already experienced this twice. But even if it happened again, I still felt so depressed in my chest that I almost suffocated. Seeing that I didn't say anything, my mother-in-law immediately pulled a long face. "Phoenix, it's Delilah's first day in our house. What do you mean by putting on such a gloomy face?" I looked at this strange mother and son with disgust, and a sense of bitterness welled up inside me. This was the wedding room that I saved money to buy, and every inch of it was decorated by me personally. I had only lived in it for a few days. Why should Delilah occupy it? Even if it happened 3 times, I still couldn't suppress my anger when hearing these words. At this time, my father-in-law walked up to me and said softly, "Phoenix, Delilah has lost her parents, and even her adoptive aunt has passed away. You should be more sensible and have pity on her. You should be more sensible." Sure enough, it was always the same sentence. In the previous 2 lives, I endured it when the whole family treated me like a stupid nanny and when they regarded Delilah as the daughter-in-law. I even endured it when my husband and Delilah were being ambiguous and intimate right under my nose. But whenever I couldn't bear it anymore and complained a little, the whole family would use "Delilah has no father or mother" to suppress me. As if I couldn't tolerate Delilah, this orphan girl, and I was vicious and domineering. But I was the mistress of this family. I was the bride who should be respected and loved. Seeing that I didn't say anything, Delilah said pitifully, "Sister-in-law, do you not want me to live in the house? I think I'd better go out and rent a house." If I hadn't seen enough of her viciousness beneath her weakness in the previous 2 lives, I would also feel extremely sorry for this orphan girl at this moment. But since I had a chance to live again, I was really too lazy to play along with her in this act. "Humph," I sneered through my nose. My husband immediately glared at me fiercely. He directly shielded Delilah as if I was going to hit her in the next second. "Delilah, this will be your home from now on. You can live here however you like. I'd like to see who dares to be rude to you." My husband's eyes met mine provocatively, as if Delilah was his new wife and the owner of this house. Indeed, since Delilah came in the previous 2 lives, I had become an outsider. My husband's family only cared about Delilah's feelings and didn't care about my life or death at all. But compared to the previous 2 lives when I directly threw Delilah's luggage out of the door and made a scene at the school where she was studying for her postgraduate degree, I was being polite now, wasn't I? I took a deep breath to calm down my emotions. "Just live here peacefully. Don't overthink it." After saying that, I picked up the vegetable basket and went out of the door, pretending not to see the triumphant looks in my husband's family's eyes. Having a second chance at life, I didn't want to get angry and harm my health for those unworthy people anymore. In the previous 2 lives, every time I made a big scene and cried bitterly, it only made Delilah seem more innocent and pitiful, and made my in-laws and husband dislike me even more. Even when I died, no one cared. Since they were so into each other, why shouldn't I just let them be? As for my muddle-headed in-laws and husband, if Delilah liked them, I could just give them to her. At noon, after I cooked the meal, my in-laws and husband affectionately pulled Delilah to the seat where I usually sat as the hostess. Delilah hesitated and didn't dare to sit down. She asked timidly, "If I sit in sister-in-law's seat, will sister-in-law be unhappy?" Before I could say anything, my in-law's sharp eyes had already stabbed at me. "Delilah, you're just right to sit in the hostess seat. You've been the apple of our family's eye since you were a child. I'd like to see who dares to complain," my mother-in-law said while giving me a sarcastic look. Although I had experienced this twice, my blood still rushed to my head. What a bunch of scoundrels this family was. Seeing that I looked unhappy, my husband immediately put on an expression of being unable to bear it anymore. "My cousin used to sit in my arms when she was a child to have meals. What's the big deal about a seat? Phoenix, as a sister-in-law, you won't be so petty, will you?" I smiled bitterly. Did anyone in this family regard me as a sister-in-law? "Let's eat. I have to rush to work overtime," I said indifferently. In my previous life, because I couldn't bear to huddle in a corner of the dining table humbly and couldn't even reach the dishes, I had to fight for my own justice. The messy scene where my husband overturned a table of dishes on the floor was still vivid in my mind. I held back my bitterness, lowered my head to eat, and pinched the chopsticks tightly with my fingers, and my knuckles turned white. I had married the wrong person. It would be a waste of time to keep entangled with them. It would be better to focus on my work. When I collected enough evidence of the affair between the cousins, I would kick this bunch of trash out of the house. I was calculating in my mind and reached out to pick up the dishes, but my chopsticks collided with Delilah's. It was my favorite fried fish roe, and there was only a small plate of it. Delilah looked at me timidly, quickly withdrew her chopsticks, and when she lowered her head, a tear fell into her bowl. Seeing this scene, my husband exploded. He suddenly stood up, picked up the plate, and scooped all the fried fish roe into Delilah's bowl. Then he turned his head and scolded me. "Phoenix, it's just a small dish. Why are you so intolerant?" Seeing that my face was turning red, Delilah, sensibly, quickly picked up the fish roe and put it back into my bowl, said with a sobbing voice, "Sister-in-law, you eat it. I don't like fish roe. Cousin, I'd better go back to school to live. If I affect the relationship between you two because of me, I'll be in big trouble." Whoa. Before I could say anything, my mother-in-law slapped her chopsticks on the table. "Judas, discipline your wife. She begged me with tears in her eyes to let her marry into our family before, and now her true colors are showing, right? Delilah, Auntie knows you love fish roe the most. Eat more. Auntie will cook it for you every day from now on, okay?" My mother-in-law folded her arms and glared at me viciously, looking like she was ready to fight with me. I felt so choked up that I was almost going crazy, but I said in a calm tone, "So sister also likes fish roe. Then I'll buy more tomorrow. There's no need to make it seem like I'm bullying you just because of such a small thing." After saying that, I put down my chopsticks and walked into the guest room and closed the door. Outside the door, Delilah was already crying bitterly. My father-in-law and mother-in-law were surrounding her and constantly comforting her. "Phoenix, what's your attitude? Come out and explain it clearly to me." My husband chased after me and pounded on the door vigorously, extremely angry. I lay on the bed, looking at the clouds outside the window, feeling extremely tired in my heart. I was the one being bullied, right? But how did I become the abuser? I didn't do anything wrong, yet I was repeatedly portrayed as the villain. My husband, mother-in-law, and father-in-law unconditionally protected Delilah again and again, and Delilah, just by shedding a few tears at the right time, could live in my house without any qualms, and snatch away the love of everyone around me. In the following few days, my mother-in-law still looked like she was ready to pick a fight with me at any time. However, seeing that I simply ignored Delilah, she cooled down and started to treat me as if I didn't exist again. The three of them in the family took Delilah out to have fun everywhere, and they were all very happy. They spent money lavishly on shopping for her. Anyone would think that Delilah was the daughter-in-law of the Judas family. And in order to escape from this family, I went out early and came back late, turning myself into a workaholic. Thanks to my hard work, I got promoted a month later. My husband Judas took the initiative to offer to celebrate my promotion for me. Although I wasn't really in the mood, I also wanted to relax after being so busy for such a long time. On that day, we went to the reserved restaurant, and I also invited my colleagues from the department to join us. Everything seemed harmonious as we were chatting and laughing, but when it came to the cake cutting part, Delilah accidentally bumped into the cake tower and knocked it over. The sticky cream smeared all over my face and head. Delilah, didn't you hurt yourself? My husband rushed over in one stride and hugged Delilah in his arms affectionately, completely ignoring my embarrassment on the side. My in-laws also hurried to surround Delilah when they saw this. Delilah, who was the center of attention like the moon surrounded by stars, cast a frightened look at me. Sister-in-law, I'm sorry. I really didn't mean it. I've ruined your promotion banquet. Delilah was crying so hard that she passed out. Seeing that Delilah had fainted, my mother-in-law said anxiously, Judas, what are you standing there for? Hurry up and take Delilah to the hospital. And my husband had already thoughtfully picked up the car keys and rushed out of the banquet hall quickly. He had already forgotten that I was the protagonist of today's promotion banquet. He didn't even show me the basic respect in front of my colleagues. Phoenix, Delilah's condition is not good now. We'll help you celebrate later. My father-in-law noticed my sadness and gave me 2 words of comfort symbolically. I had already heard what my father-in-law said twice. In the previous 2 lives, after Delilah knocked over the cake, I couldn't bear her green tea act and got into a fight with her. But as a result of the fight, my husband shielded Delilah with his body. My father-in-law and mother-in-law tried their best to hold me down, and in the end, not only was I hit several times, but I was also smeared with cream all over my body, becoming a laughingstock in the whole company. I, who had just been promoted to the position of director, was demoted again. In this life, I didn't have the energy to fight anymore. I wiped the cream off my face and forced a smile. It's okay. You guys go and take care of her quickly. When I got home in the evening, the whole family was gathered around Delilah's bed, looking very concerned. My mother-in-law, who never went into the kitchen, even specially cooked soup for her. I took a glance at this harmonious family scene and was just about to turn around and go into the guest room when my husband grabbed me. Phoenix, today. Judas looked at me as if he had just remembered that I existed. Today Delilah is not feeling well. You can stay in the master bedroom to take care of her, I said generously. Judas was a bit surprised and happy when he saw that I wasn't angry and even took the initiative to let him stay in the master bedroom. I pushed Judas's hand away and went back to the guest room, and tears still flowed down my face, thinking of the strange looks from my colleagues during the day. I couldn't pretend to be calm anymore and bit the quilt and cried bitterly. Because I worked so hard, the company decided to send me to take over the overseas branch. I agreed without hesitation. On the night before going abroad, Delilah excitedly offered to hold a farewell banquet for me with her scholarship. Before I could say yes, my husband affectionately put his arm around Delilah's shoulders. Cousin, you're so considerate. My in-laws on the side also echoed repeatedly, Delilah has been understanding since she was a child. She's not like some people. I looked at Delilah, who was the center of attention like the moon surrounded by stars, and sneered in my heart. At the farewell banquet in my first life, Delilah made all kinds of excuses to get me drunk. The next morning, I missed the plane, and the company canceled my qualification to go abroad. And when I accused Delilah of deliberately harming me, my husband slapped me, saying that I was ungrateful and narrow-minded and wanted to divorce me. At the farewell banquet in my second life, Delilah took out a medical examination report, saying that she had been diagnosed with a serious stomach problem. My husband's family forced me to give up the opportunity to go abroad and resign to stay at home to take care of Delilah's 3 meals a day. The reason was simply that Delilah cried and said that she only liked the food I cooked, but she really couldn't delay my future. I ignored her coldly, but my in-laws secretly hid my passport. My husband even went to my company without permission and submitted my resignation letter, making me stay at home to cook soup for Delilah. I had lived through 2 lives, adding up to nearly 60 years. Delilah's clumsy acting skills made me feel extremely disgusted. Thank you for your kindness, sister, but I need to pack my luggage in the evening and also rush to finish a plan. So let's skip the farewell banquet. Before I could finish my words, Delilah was already in tears. Sister-in-law, you always ignore me. You don't even want me to see you off. I won't be in your way anymore. I'm leaving. Here we go again. Even with my back to Delilah, I could imagine her pitiful and aggrieved look. But just as I was about to leave, my husband blocked my way. Phoenix, why are you always so high and mighty? Seeing how brainless my husband was, I retorted directly, what's wrong with me being high and mighty? I'm the mistress of this family, and this house was bought with the money I saved. My husband was so angry that his eyes turned bloodshot when he saw that I dared to talk back. Since you're the mistress of this family, you should be more tolerant of Delilah. With your aggressive and intolerant look, how can you be a sister-in-law? You're simply a shrew. This house was bought by you. So what? Are you going to drive us out? It was you who were willing to buy the house and write my name on it before we got married. Are you regretting it now? Judas's fierce words made me laugh out of anger. What amazing logic and such a thick skin. Seeing that I actually laughed, my mother-in-law on the side couldn't stand it. Phoenix, don't be too complacent. Our family is from the city. It was you who knelt down and begged me to let you marry into our family before. I never looked up to you, a country bumpkin. Being stabbed at my sore spot, my heart suddenly contracted. Delilah on the side quickly spoke up for me. Auntie, don't say that about sister-in-law. Sister-in-law will be sad. I'm also from the countryside. You're different. You grew up in my sister's family since you were a child. You're just like a city kid. Oh, Phoenix, if only you could be half as sensible and gentle as Delilah. My mother-in-law said with great distress, and suddenly she covered her chest and fell on the sofa. Auntie, what's wrong with you? Delilah saw that my mother-in-law was uncomfortable and knelt on the ground, shaking her constantly. It's okay. It's an old problem. I'll feel heartache when I'm angry. My mother-in-law murmured, and Delilah burst into tears. Auntie, you mustn't be ill. What would I do if something happened to you? You're the only relative I have left. My husband heard this and quickly hugged Delilah's thin body. Silly sister, what are you talking about? You still have your cousin. Brother, I'll go to the temple tomorrow to pray for Auntie's health. I'm willing to exchange 10 years of my life for Auntie's long life and peace. As soon as Delilah said this, the mother-in-law's family was so touched that they hugged her tightly, and the 4 of them burst into tears together. Looking at the genuine family affection in front of me, I was almost moved. It's okay. I'll go abroad tomorrow and there will be no outsiders to interfere with your happiness anymore. Wish your family harmony forever. After I went abroad, I devoted myself to work wholeheartedly. My husband's family seemed as if I didn't exist at all. They never called me or sent me a single message. However, Delilah occasionally showed concern for me, but there was still that strong green tea flavor in her words. After a while, seeing that I never replied, Delilah simply changed her way of greeting and started sending me photos. All the photos she sent were intimate photos of herself and Judas. At first, they were just hugging. Then it escalated to kissing. Finally, Delilah even sent me the bed photos of her and Judas. I remained silent and quietly saved these photos, preparing to use them when filing for divorce when I returned to China. In fact, in the previous 2 lives, I already knew about their relationship. Although Judas and Delilah called each other brother and sister, they had no blood relationship at all and had crossed the line long ago. In the first life, I came back from a business trip early and found Delilah snuggling in Judas's arms, and the 2 were chatting and laughing. I was both shocked and angry. I raised my hand to hit Delilah, but Judas pushed me to the ground. What right do you have to hit my sister? Sister? Have you ever seen someone hold his sister in his arms and kiss her like a wife? I was so angry that I had a big quarrel with Judas, but I was scolded by my in-laws who came after hearing the noise. They grew up together. It's normal for them to be affectionate. Yes, Phoenix, don't make a fuss about nothing. And Delilah was already crying uncontrollably on the side. I can't live. How can I face others in the future? Sister-in-law, why do you slander me like this? The mother-in-law, who was heartbroken, quickly hugged Delilah in her arms. Delilah, it's okay. Auntie believes you. That time, I ran out of the house under the repeated attacks of Judas's family and was hit by a van hired by Delilah until I was bruised and bloody. Not long after I died, Judas and Delilah got the marriage certificate. Brother and sister? Slander? Judas's family never mentioned this again, as if they had lost their memory. In the second life, I deliberately paid attention to the actions of Judas and Delilah. After collecting enough evidence, I was about to call the police, but Delilah noticed something was wrong and directly threw my mobile phone into the toilet. I'm sorry, sister-in-law. I was helping you wash clothes just now, and it slipped out of my hand. I really didn't mean it. I was about to lose my temper, but my husband's family came around in time. Did you bully Delilah again? Alas, I really shouldn't have married you, a troublemaker. If only you were half as gentle as Delilah. In the second life, I remained silent, stared fixedly at Delilah's quickly changing face, and ground my back teeth. In the third life, I let Judas and Delilah be affectionate secretly. I contacted a lawyer early and patiently collected evidence, just waiting for the final step. As for the relationship between Judas and Delilah, I didn't care about it anymore. I just wanted to get the property back as soon as possible and start a new life. On the New Year's Eve of the first year after I went abroad, I still bought a plane ticket to return to China. On the Lunar New Year's Eve, every family was reunited. On my way home, I looked at the countless lights and felt my heart broken again and again. When I opened the door, the four of them were sitting around having the New Year's Eve dinner. There were 4 sets of chopsticks, and they clearly had forgotten my existence. Seeing me come in, Judas came over with an awkward smile all over his face to help me with my luggage. Phoenix, why are you back? Why? Can't I come back to my own home on New Year's Eve? Judas was left speechless by my retort and just kept nodding, looking at Delilah with twinkle eyes. Delilah quickly gave up the seat that originally belonged to me and eagerly held my hand. Sister-in-law, sit down quickly. Was the journey smooth? I didn't respond and went to the kitchen to get a set of chopsticks by myself. Then pulled a bench and sat in a corner of the dining table. Oh, Phoenix, we didn't forget you. We've missed you so much during the year you've been abroad. It's just. My in-laws tried hard to find excuses to break the awkwardness, but they stuttered for a long time and couldn't say a word. I smiled faintly. Let's eat. I'm hungry. At this time, Delilah vomited all over the floor with a wow. The mother-in-law looked at her in surprise. Delilah, why have you been vomiting so often recently? Could it be? The mother-in-law looked worried, but Delilah suddenly knelt on the ground. Auntie, I'm pregnant. It's my brother's. This is the paid node. As soon as these words came out, the in-laws were dumbfounded. Although they thought it was okay for Judas and Delilah to be a bit affectionate, they never expected it would go this far. Mom, for the sake of the child in her belly, please help me and Delilah. Seeing that he couldn't hide it anymore, Judas also knelt on the ground and begged. At this time, the in-laws all turned their heads to look at me. Haha, now you remember who the daughter-in-law is? I pretended not to see the looks of my in-laws and ate the dishes heartily. Phoenix. Well, since there's a child now, why don't you? The mother-in-law didn't blame Delilah or Judas at all and directly persuaded me to give up my position. However, I had heard even more shameless words than this in the previous 2 lives, so I calmly put down my chopsticks. Judas had an affair during our marriage. Divorce is okay, but you have to leave the house without taking anything. Judas was stunned when he heard this, and Delilah covered her flat belly and started crying directly. My poor child, the only heir of the Judas family. What will you do when you're born? You won't even have a place to live. Woo-woo. While crying, Delilah secretly winked at Judas. Although Judas wasn't very smart, he reacted quickly in this kind of thing. Phoenix, this house is in my name. Do you think I'll just leave when you tell me to? It's not that easy. I snorted and put down my chopsticks. Judas, when you married me, you kept saying that I wasn't good enough for you, but you couldn't even afford a house. I paid the down payment for this house and made the monthly mortgage payments. I just gave it to you as a gift. Now you're having an affair with your mistress in my house. Not only do you have to get out, but you also have to compensate me. You. The mother-in-law was so angry that she pushed me to the ground. We won't leave. What can you do about it? I fell heavily to the ground and dug my fingers into the carpet with hatred. Okay, then I'll leave. After going out, I stood in the biting cold wind on New Year's Eve and dialed the lawyer's phone number. On that New Year's Eve, I wrapped myself in a quilt and watched the fireworks blooming outside the window on the hotel bed, feeling dead inside. After the spring festival, I sued Judas. The lawsuit went very smoothly. On the day of the verdict, the mother-in-law knelt at the entrance of the court and begged me. Phoenix, please give us a few more months. Now Delilah is pregnant, and we can't find a place to live for the time being. I looked at the mother-in-law on the ground coldly. Auntie, Delilah is your daughter-in-law, and the child is your grandson. It has nothing to do with me. Why should I pity you? After saying this, I carried my luggage and went straight to the airport. After going abroad, I entrusted an agency to help sell that house. Everywhere in the house was filled with painful memories, and I really didn't want to touch it anymore. In the previous 2 lives, Judas and Delilah got together only after I died. But in this life, perhaps because I slackened off and they thought I was easy to bully, they actually hurt me so blatantly. Although I had experienced these pains for 3 lives, the pain in my heart still didn't decrease at all. I tried my best to cheer myself up abroad. Every day, my schedule was filled with work, study, and exercise, not giving myself the slightest chance to recall Judas's family. Soon it was Christmas, and the overseas branch was going to hold a masquerade ball. I chose the costume of Sailor Moon, which was my favorite in my girlhood. Unexpectedly, I met my tuxedo mask at the ball that night. That night, my colleagues and I were dancing freely and releasing our emotions on the dance floor. Suddenly, a tall man dressed as Tuxedo Mask walked up to me. Sailor Moon, may I have a dance with you? I stopped moving and looked at him hesitantly. Having been hurt by Judas and Delilah for 3 lifetimes, I really had no confidence in men. It's rock music now. How can we dance? I smiled and tried to make an excuse to put him off. However, the man just smiled slightly and snapped his fingers at the control console. As the man's action ended, the noisy music stopped abruptly, and the sound of a piano rang out over the ballroom. The man completely ignored the crowd who were still reluctant to stop and extended a hand to me gentlemanly. Wow, it's Apollo. Phoenix is so lucky. I heard that the people who are chasing him could line up all the way to Europe. Hearing my colleagues' whispers, I suddenly realized that the man in front of me was actually Apollo, the president of the Asia region. I had only seen this man in the company's promotional videos before. He was an outstanding student graduated from Princeton University, born into an artistic family. He was excellent, wealthy, and handsome, but how could he take a fancy to me? Seeing my hesitation, the man's hand still persisted in stretching out in the air, making an inviting gesture. I looked at his lips curved under the mask and gently took his hand. The ball that night was the most dreamy and glorious moment in my life. After being hurt thoroughly by Judas's family, I was like Cinderella getting on the carriage at midnight. When the song ended, I just wanted to let go of Apollo's hand, but he held it tightly. Phoenix, may I court you? That night, I rejected Apollo's courtship. Having experienced divorce, betrayal, and being hurt 3 times, I didn't dare to love again. However, after that day, Apollo launched a high-profile pursuit of me, and I was blocked at the entrance of the company by his childhood sweetheart. Are you Phoenix? A Barbie-like mixed-race woman blocked my way, but still spoke politely. I nodded. Can we have a chat? If it's about General Manager Apollo, then there's no need. I have nothing to do with him. The woman smiled wryly. Miss Phoenix, you underestimate yourself too much. Apollo has already informed his family that he will marry no one but you. What? I was so shocked that I couldn't move. The woman helplessly curled her lips and pointed at the car not far away. So, let's have a chat. Just 10 minutes will do. I was so shocked by the information brought by the woman that my brain froze. I numbly followed her and got into the car. After getting in the car and sitting down, the woman's first sentence was, "I want to compete with you." Compete? I was surprised. Yes. Before Apollo gets married, please let me compete with you fairly. I'm his childhood sweetheart who grew up with him, and you're a passerby he fell in love with at first sight on New Year's Eve. It's just unexpected that he met you again. After hearing the woman's words, I had mixed feelings. Fate really likes to play tricks on people. On the night of New Year's Eve, after I walked out of my own house, I was dragging my luggage while crying and looking for a hotel all over the street. Unexpectedly, I was seen by Apollo, who was driving by. But Apollo, such a dazzling man, how many admirers must he have around him? Thinking of this, I said seriously, "Miss, you may be mistaken. Even if General Manager Apollo has some feelings for me, it's just a passing fancy. I'm from the countryside, and my parents are ordinary farmers. Moreover, I'm divorced." I said my situation calmly, but my heart was bleeding. However, the woman in front of me tilted her head and stared at me curiously. "Do you think these things you mentioned have anything to do with liking someone?" I was speechless, and the woman smiled gently. "You have a melancholic temperament, and I've investigated you. You work hard and are excellent at work. I think these are the reasons why Apollo likes you. As for what you just said, I don't think it has anything to do with love at all." I was about to speak again when the woman generously said, "There's a camping trip this Saturday. Both Apollo and I will go. You should come too." Before I could agree, the woman opened the car door for me and made a gesture of invitation. After getting out of the car, watching the woman's car speeding away, a strange feeling rose in my heart. Perhaps I had been hurt and tortured by Judas's family for too long. The woman's straightforwardness shone into my heart like sunlight. On Saturday I arrived as promised. Apollo, dressed in casual clothes, looked even more handsome. The camping site was full of wealthy people in his circle, and I felt a bit restrained. He noticed my restraint and took me to form a team and play various projects together all the way. When playing the Rapids ride, I saw Apollo's childhood sweetheart again. Seeing that Apollo took such good care of me, she shrugged helplessly, mouthed to me, "I won't give up." Then she immediately jumped into the water in a bikini. At night I sat beside Apollo, and the bonfire made the air seem thick. "Do you know? I was deeply impressed by you when I first saw you," Apollo said in my ear. "Is it because a homeless wretch on New Year's Eve is quite rare?" I smiled bitterly. Apollo curled his lips and shook his head. "When I drove past you, I heard you crying while comforting yourself." I was surprised. "What did I say?" "You said, 'Don't cry. Today is New Year's Eve, and I should be happy.'" "Ha ha ha." I laughed. After such a long time, hearing my embarrassing state at that time from Apollo's mouth, I actually felt a bit funny. "So, when I saw you again at the Christmas ball, I didn't want to miss you again. I like you. And I also want to protect you." Apollo's affectionate eyes swept across my face. At this time I felt a sharp gaze cast on Apollo and me. "Who's that lady?" "Oh, she's my cousin, but we're not related by blood." As soon as I heard the word cousin, I shrank back in fright. Once bitten, twice shy. At this time she directly ran up to us. "I say, brother, you've been sick of with Miss Phoenix all day long and haven't even glanced at me properly. I've already made an agreement with Miss Phoenix that we'll compete fairly." Hearing this, Apollo stretched out his big hand and rubbed her head. "You're still so impulsive, girl. Don't scare Miss Phoenix. What fair competition? I don't fancy you, a little kid at all." She was so angry that she climbed onto Apollo's back directly, and the two of them started playing around. Looking at the cousins in front of me and then thinking about Judas and Delilah, I smiled after a long time, with a hint of bitterness in my smile. 1 month later Apollo and I got together. After we confirmed our relationship, Apollo proposed to take me back to China to attend an acquisition meeting. Thinking of the place that once brought me so much pain, I hesitated a bit. Apollo gently held my hand. Phoenix, don't be afraid. I'm here. I nodded, but I didn't expect to meet Judas on the night of the acquisition meeting. Before the acquisition meeting started, Apollo said that he had prepared a gift for me tonight. However, before the gift was revealed, I still needed to keep a distance from him. Since Apollo held a high position, I naturally understood the key points and nodded sensibly. But just as I stepped into the acquisition meeting, someone called me from behind. Phoenix? Why are you here? It was Judas. I hadn't seen him for a long time, and he looked much haggard. There was no longer the domineering and complacent look in his eyes in the past. Instead, he looked more tired. Oh, I'm here to attend the acquisition meeting with a friend. I said indifferently and looked out of the window, averting my gaze. Phoenix, are you okay now? For the first time in my life, Judas actually showed concern for me. I replied indifferently, I'm fine. Well, Delilah is about to give birth, right? Judas paused for a moment, clenching the corners of his clothes tightly with both hands. That child isn't mine. What? I was shocked. In the previous 2 lives, Delilah had tried every means to scheme against me, and in both endings, she got pregnant and gave birth after taking the position. Could it be that Delilah had an even bigger conspiracy? Judas looked me up and down and said gloomily, Phoenix, you've become even more beautiful. I felt like a weasel paying a New Year call to a chicken, and goosebumps rose all over my body. Can we start over again? When Judas said this, I almost vomited. Judas, I turned my head and stared at him, speaking word by word, what makes you think that I'll come back to you? Even if I'm alone for the rest of my life and starve to death or die in poverty, I'll never knock on your door again. After saying that, I left with a gloomy face and walked alone to a corner of the venue to sit down. At this time, Apollo's assistant walked up to me. Miss Phoenix, did that person harass you just now? You don't look well. I shook my head indifferently, but the assistant didn't seem to have any intention of leaving. Miss Phoenix, do you know that employee just now? I felt embarrassed and then nodded. Oh, then excuse me for being nosy. If he asks you to lend him money, don't lend it to him. He owes a huge sum of money and has privately misappropriated public funds. After the company completes the acquisition tonight, he will be handed over to the police. What? Although Judas's family was not wealthy, they were still fairly well off. They shouldn't have misappropriated public funds. Seeing that I frowned tightly, the assistant hesitated for a moment and then told me everything. It turned out that after the divorce, Delilah, relying on the child in her belly, demanded that Judas's family buy a villa and put her name on it. Judas's family gritted their teeth and bought a second-hand villa in the suburbs. Judas had to repay a mortgage of 40,000 yuan every month. But how could his salary of just over 10,000 yuan be enough? After Delilah became the daughter-in-law of Judas's family, her previous weak and pitiful appearance disappeared completely. She dropped out of school without permission, stayed at home every day, being lazy and gluttonous under the pretext of nurturing the fetus, and changed her attitude towards her once respected father-in-law and mother-in-law. She even slapped the old couple several times because the mother-in-law's cooking didn't suit her taste, and pushed the father-in-law down the stairs because he was slow in fetching takeout. She used the tricks she had used on me to sow discord in Judas's family. When facing Judas, she pretended to be weak and pitiful, saying that her in-laws looked down on her as the daughter-in-law who had come from being a cousin, and that she was having a hard time with the child in her belly and that they were making things difficult for her. And Judas naturally believed her. He hadn't woken up from his obsession with Delilah yet. He thought that this weak and helpless cousin had been bullied terribly by his parents. Judas was so angry that he lost his head and drove his parents out of the house. Unexpectedly, Judas's parents had a car accident on the night when they were driven out by their son. By the time they were sent to the hospital, they had both passed away. The death of his parents was a great shock to Judas. For the first time, he began to examine Delilah. He despairingly found that his beloved wife was actually a devil. In order to repay the mortgage, Judas worked day and night to make money. After work, he even worked as a designated driver. However, during one of his designated driving jobs, he found the bracelet he had bought for Delilah in the customer's car. That bracelet was customized, with engraved on the crystal stone. Judas pretended to ask the car owner if his wife's bracelet had been left in the car. Unexpectedly, the car owner took a look at the bracelet and laughed wantonly. "Oh, it's my mistress's. This little bitch actually left the little gift her unlucky husband bought for her in the car. Ha 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 ha." Judas gritted his teeth and drove to the destination. He remembered the license plate number and began to investigate secretly. The result of the investigation made him feel worse than death. Delilah had been lying to him from the beginning to the end. When Delilah said that she wanted to move into the house at first, it was just to make it convenient for her to date the man who was keeping her and avoid being seen by her classmates. She had never loved Judas for a single day. She just couldn't bear to see her cousin, who had always been so affectionate to her since childhood, have another woman. So she sowed discord, put on performances, and took possession. In the end, she discarded him like trash and even stepped on him hard. When Judas presented the evidence in front of Delilah and asked for a divorce, Delilah, that green tea, not only showed no remorse but also stroked her belly and said, "Judas, now everyone around you knows that you're about to become a father. If you divorce me at this time, what kind of reputation will you get?" Judas was furious. "Do you mean that you want me to raise the child for you?" "No need." Delilah raised her eyelids and gave Judas a glance. "The biological father of the child is much richer than you. You. What right do you have to scold me?" Delilah suddenly turned hostile. "You had an affair with your own cousin and even forced your parents to death. Now you have the nerve to blame me? You're no good either." Judas was left speechless. He suddenly felt that all his past efforts were extremely absurd. He even misappropriated public funds for a long time to pay the mortgage so that Delilah could live in the villa she had always dreamed of, and thus embarked on a road of no return. After listening to this, I was shocked and had mixed feelings. I cast my eyes on Judas's back. He was less than 30 years old, but he was already stooped. Just as I was in a daze, Apollo's voice rang out on the stage. "Today, I want to announce something." Apollo's eyes turned to me, and the spotlight immediately shone on me. "Today I came with my fiancé. Now I'd like to introduce Miss Phoenix to you all ceremoniously." Immediately, there was thunderous applause in the venue. Apollo extended his hand to me on the stage. I walked slowly towards the stage. Looking at the high-spirited Apollo on the stage, when passing by Judas, I heard his cowardly murmur, "Phoenix, how could you?" I ignored this muddled guy's question, walked onto the stage, and took Apollo's arm. "Besides, there's another thing to announce here." Apollo's voice became solemn. "Judas, an employee of the washing group, which is being acquired tonight, has privately misappropriated public funds. The company has already informed the police, sued Judas, and will dismiss him." There was an uproar in the venue, but Judas didn't show much surprise on his face. Calmly, he was handcuffed by the police waiting in the venue and taken away. Before leaving the venue, Judas turned his head and gave me a deep look. I avoided his gaze. After Judas was detained, the villa under his name was also mortgaged as an asset. Delilah, who was about to give birth, was driven out of the villa and went to the shelter. And her shady lover, after hearing about Judas's case, in order to distance himself from it, disappeared without a trace. In this new life, I unexpectedly became a winner in life by taking a laid-back attitude. The end.